Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Ciphr and MyTeamBuilder. Today we're looking at psychology and AI, a new era for personalised coaching. I'm Catherine, I'm Head of Marketing here at Ciphr, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by the team from TeamBuilder, Bill and Lee. Welcome, Bill. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Here's a look at our agenda for today. I'm going to take you through a quick tour of Ciphr and what we do here, just in case you haven't come across us before. And then I'm going to hand over to Bill and Lee. They'll tell us all about TeamBuilder and then talk about what makes us who we are as people, the difficulties of traditional training and assessments, common issues that affect how people learn, and how MyTeamBuilder solves the challenges of traditional L&D. We'll also have time at the end for your questions, so do send them in using the Q&A panel and use the chat area to say hi and to send in your comments anytime. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be emailed to you afterwards. In case you haven't come across Ciphr before, we're a complete people management solutions provider. We cover everything from recruitment and onboarding software through to payroll, central HR, benefits, e-learning, analytics, and AI. We won't be going into all of those tools today, but if you're interested to learn more, you can visit our website at ciphr.com or email our team at info@ciphr.com. So just to talk a little bit about our approach to AI, we believe in AI functionality that streamline HR and people processes, that automate repetitive tasks to improve efficiency and enhance decision-making. One element of that is AI review summaries, which is now part of our HR software. The AI tool there analyzes historic performance review forms and generates suggested responses. This saves time and improves the quality of performance conversations, and that's all part of our talent management functionality. If you wanted to learn more about the AI tools that we offer, you can click the button on your screen now to request a copy of our AI fact sheet. And we're thrilled to partner with MyTeamBuilder, a company that we've invested in here at Ciphr, to enhance our AI offering and really join up all of our solutions together. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Bill, I think, in the first instance. Is that right, Bill?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Catherine. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. It's really good to see you. We are a kind of dual business. I'm a psychologist and Lee is a computer scientist. We do interesting things in terms of assessment, learning. We created the world's first grit assessment based on the data from West Point in America. And we've done 250 odd private equity deals where we're using different methods to assess people. So that's who we are and what we do. I'm the psychologist, Lee's the computer scientist. And we were having a discussion this morning about which of our jobs would be obsolete first. And we agreed it would be yours, Lee, didn't we?
Yeah, no surprise, this one.
The computer scientist.
Yeah.
So today we want to talk to you a little bit about learning and development from a psychological construct, how people learn, what works, what hasn't worked, what could work, and trip you through some of our experiences of that, because I think it's quite important. I was a professor of psychology in Brussels and Stockholm, and I used to teach senior execs from all over the world how to understand people. And one of the biggest problems I had was the difference between personality and behavior, because people would conflate them. They would say, I would have on the one hand people saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I am who I am and you can't change me now, right over to, do you know, Bill, my personality has changed dramatically in the last 10 years or something like that. So we had to create some sort of construct that helped them understand the difference between the two. And so personality as a construct is a result of the interaction between genetic conditions, what's in our biological data, and environmental conditions, what's fed into us during those first crucial 10 years. By the time we're about 10, the personality is set and doesn't change. And so therefore, we would say that personality as a construct is stable and predictable. So your personality doesn't change. I've got lots of clinical data to back that up, but if you just go to a school reunion, you'll know what I mean. Behavior is a result of the interaction between personality and situation. We're all capable of modifying our behavior if we choose. So behavior is the one that's kind of the saving grace that you can change, and we do. We behave differently at home, at work, if we're out with friends. So our behavior modifies, our personality stays the same. And I think it's quite important as we go through the development areas to see why that, to understand that difference in the constructs. And that also means there's no such thing as a personality clash, because what you have in effect is two people unwilling to modify their behavior. And of course, it does answer the question, can you teach an old dog new tricks? Yes, you can, if the old dog wants to learn them, that is. Behavior also has an impact and a consequence. The impact is how we leave people feeling, and the consequence of that is what they do as a result. For example, if you ask somebody to work late and they do and you don't thank them, the impact is they feel put upon. The consequence is try asking them to work late again. So the focus of much of our learning is about helping people modify their behavior. It's like getting them into habits. So imagine you're out till 2 a.m, you've been out with friends and you're tired and you just want to go to bed and you're really tired, but you don't, do you? You brush your teeth. Why do you do that? Because brushing your teeth is a habit. It's an embedded behavior that's become instinctual. And that's often what we're doing with learning and development, which is people into the right sort of habits that are right for them. As most of you know, Stephen Covey wrote the best-selling book for business ever, called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And it's quite interesting because I like the idea of habits. We spoke together at the Royal Albert Hall, and I said to him, I love the idea of habits. I think that's great, but I don't like your book because there aren't 7 habits for everyone. But he said, how much have you got in the bank? So I said, okay, then you win. So why do we need to change? For any organism to survive, its rate of learning must be at least equal to or greater than the rate of change in its environment. Now, that's a law of biology, but it really transfers over to what we do. Our job is to help people survive, evolve, thrive, and to navigate their environments, and to help create those environments for them so that they're allowed to thrive. So let's go through some more examples. Training versus learning. I think this is part of the problem because training is a passive term, something that's done to us, whereas the actual term, the active term, is learning, which hopefully happens after training or often happens without it. Because we often go into business speak. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was asked to go and meet a lady called Jenny. She's chief exec of our business in Cambridge. And it was interesting because they said she had a time management problem, which was really interesting, the way they phrased it, because they'd sent her on 2 time management courses. And of course, she'd come back and she still, as they said, had a time management problem. So I said, no, what is the problem? Well, she has a time management problem. No, that's not the problem. What is the problem? She's always late for meetings. So can you help her, Bill? And I said, yeah, of course. So I went to see her, sat down with her. Hi, Jenny, I'm Bill. It's lovely to see you. Next time you're late, you will be sacked, Jenny. And it cured in a nanosecond. It's kind of behaviorism in action, because the problem wasn't time management. But as soon as we put a nice little label around it, then we attach a training course to it when it's not actually addressing the problem. So there's a great difference, in my view, between training and learning. And we looked at a recent McKinsey study, and they're saying it's still the more transformational actions a company takes, the greater its chances for success. Yet success remains the exception and not the rule. So why is that? Why is it still after all these years, still the exception rather than the rule. And I think it will continue to be unless we change the paradigm. So what can we learn from past interventions? You know, the traditional training course is something that's kind of done to us. And we know now one size doesn't fit all. We know, we agree people are different and we rightly celebrate diversity, but then we put everyone through the same course, the sheep dip approach, and say, you have been trained, tick. And I think that's part of the problem, that we don't really think about up front and how what we're trying to achieve and then follow on from it. We kind of put them through a training course and it's like, tick, you've been trained, now go on. And I think that's part of the problem. You know, if you look at, say, the Honey and Mumford learning styles, I was asked to use that in Dubai. Now it's from 1986. So they're trying to say, well, look, we all have different learning styles, maybe, but the data tells us that if you want to learn something, you will learn it in your way, however it's presented. So if you are much more likely to be an activist to be thrown in, if you're not allowed that opportunity and you still want to learn, your brain will adjust and you will still learn. And when we used the learning styles questionnaire in Dubai, it was really quite funny because we some of the questions, I've got them here, I often throw caution to the wind. I don't believe in beating about the bush. It's best to look before you leap. I mean, this is incredible. This is trying to put people in a category when you're using words they don't even understand. Same with Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. Training courses on their own rarely achieve lasting outcomes. It's often a case of we need training and no thought of preparation or follow-up. So it becomes a one event, a kind of silver bullet that this, you have been trained, everything's okay now. So some examples of that. Outward bound courses. I did when I was a jobbing psychologist a few years back, I used to go and examine training courses and validate them, which is quite interesting. And of course, outward bound, everyone saw that as the kind of pinnacle in those days. This is the way to train. So you go up to Cumbria, you and your team, and you climb a mountain and you go across on rafts and you do all sorts of things. And everyone agreed this is the best way to bond a team. Until Bill came along, unfortunately. But so they would go away for a week. They'd all get tired and sweaty and win together. And they'd come out of there holding hands and singing Kumbaya. But all the data, unfortunately, showed that when they got back to work, within about 3 months, it had dissipated. So it was a good one-off event, probably had a great time, lovely bonding session. Did it lead to behavioural modification and an increase in team performance? No, it didn't, not at all. Another one that I remember in the noughties, everyone was going off on empowerment courses and coming back and saying, you know, I'm empowered. What do you want me to do? Well, it's up to you because you're empowered. And it's like giving somebody an empty car park to park in. They don't know where to go. So these were just kind of faddish, almost faddish interventions, listening skills. I sat in on a listening skills course, and what it did was teach people how to pretend to listen, to go, I see. You know, I could be asleep behind those babies. So you don't actually, you know, listening is about choice. If you want to listen, you will listen. Listening skills. I don't see listening as a skill. I see it more as a choice. And, you know, the Latin root of the word education is educato, E-D-U-C-T-O, which means leading out, not trying to be like her or him, but actually leading out a better version of you. That's what leadership's about. And that's what I see development being about. And I sat in on some management training, horrendously expensive courses, where they fell into the same trap. They say, okay, everyone, who are the great leaders in history? And they come up with a couple of names, Richard Branson, Winston Churchill, yada, yada. What made them great? And they brainstorm on this clip, what makes them, on the flip chart, what makes them great? And then they say, how can we be like that? And you say, stop. It's not possible, nor is it desirable to try to be like other people. I go back again to the Latin root of education, educato, leading out. It's like you, me, Lee, with all our little foibles and idiosyncrasies, trying to make the best of it and navigate it. Was my conclusion. Similarly with assessments, you know, assessments are so many. I mean, I've used them all. I've used Myers-Briggs, 16PF, IROB, Hogan, Wave, OPQ, and they're great as a starting point. I think often they're used as an endpoint. You know, like if you look at the Myers-Briggs Jungian type indicator, that's the most popular, 2 million hits a year. But often, you know, I go away and I go on a course and I find out I'm an ENTP and I go, wow, that's me. That's just like me. So what? I think assessments need to answer that question. So what? What's at the end of it? So I see assessments as a starting point. I mean, Myers-Briggs is good. I mean, I'm sure you all know, it was developed in 1941 by the mother and daughter, Catherine Briggs and Isabel Briggs Myers. And they were using Jungian type to try and create an assessment to assess American personnel's fitness for battle and what sort of jobs they should go into. And so I really like Myers-Briggs, as I like all the assessments, but it's the so what that is really important. You know, a good example, we prefer people who are like us, but we actually need people who are not like us. We prefer people like us because we get them, we understand them because they're like us. We don't but we actually need people who are not like us, and they a little bit get on our nerves. Something like that is a great starting point. We're all different. I love it. I would teach psychology in schools to say there's no good person, no bad person, no good type. We're all just different, and it helps you kind of navigate it. Lisa, an ISFJ, I'm an ENTP. Can you imagine? You know, you remember you built the first website, Lee, and I tried to give you constructive feedback, and I said it looks like a single light bulb swinging in a dark, dank cellar. Do you remember?
Yeah, which I knew exactly what to do with that, being an ISFJ. I come from the detail upwards, and I have no idea.
Yeah, I know. I'm so ashamed of that. But also, you know, when I used to teach these senior execs, they'd say, you can't put me in a box. And you'd say, we have to put you in a box. And they'd say, you can't put me in a box. Ironically, all the CEOs said, you can't put me in a box, thereby putting themselves in a box. But I said, you have to, if you take a humanistic approach to assessment, then there are 7 billion people on the planet. Then you have 7 billion classifications. So you're actually putting people in a box so you can take them out of the box. People, like organizations, are like some other people, all other people, and no other people. So if you start with the box, in effect, what you're doing is getting to know them as a type, and then you get to know them, you follow it through, and you get to know them as an individual. But it's a great, great starting point. But with assessments, always, no matter how good they are, no matter how good the psychologist is, or the results and how accurate they are, and it's great, it is at best of interest if you don't follow it through and don't answer the question, so what? Because that's really, really important. So then I know if I go to Lee to ask him something, I need to go and prepare, because I go in and I'm an extrovert. So my neural processing takes place through speaking. So I go to Lee and I say, I've got this idea. And maybe actually, let me take a step back. And Lee's just dying on his feet. He's just so fed up. So you learn that, okay, when I go to Lee, I have to do it this way. So there's some sort of follow on from it, rather than, yeah, you're an ENTP, you're an ISFJ. Isn't that interesting? What's the next parlor game we're going to play?
But it works the other way around as well, Bill. I also need to step forward as well. I need to appreciate that just sitting there, not saying anything, working in my own head. But extroverts, you particularly, that I need to learn that I need to walk towards you a little bit, metaphorically, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the whole point, Lee. It's all about, like, So what does it mean for me? How do I take that forward? How do I learn best? What motivates me? What do I not like doing, and how can I motivate myself to do it? So there's a lot more to just looking at a profile, I would argue. So some common issues that affect how people learn. I thought it might be good to widen the context here and look at, say, behavior and attitude. The normal parlance is that attitude determines behavior. And I think a lot of HR people, a lot of line managers, they're really kindly, helpful, and they try to change someone's attitude. And it doesn't work often. But if you understand this counter to that, behavior also determines attitude. So we spend a lot of time, I think, just trying to change someone's attitude, but where the opposite works. If you think about seatbelts, before 1983, January the 31st, they spent millions and millions on advertising. You should wear a seatbelt. They even showed you graphically people who'd gone through the windscreens of cars because they hadn't worn a seatbelt, and they interviewed them. I mean, they tried every way, and it was still at 90% not wearing seatbelts. January the 31st, 1983, they said, you've got to wear a seatbelt or you get fined 60 quid. Within a month, that had reversed round. So sometimes behavior determines the attitude. Get someone doing something, they might grumble and gripe a bit for a while, but then they go, yeah, this is the new norm. I was asked to go to Sandvik, and they're a big company, 18 billion turnover in Sweden, and they asked me to go and teach them change management. Now, they were hugely successful, like really, really hugely successful. And so before I went, I shouldn't have done it, but I went over to Sandviken because they have their own village. They're such a big company. And while I was in there, I said, bye, everyone. And I nicked some heady note paper up my jumper and took it home. So then I went out there and I said, okay, 18 in a room, all really tough old men. They all were really hardened engineers. And so they said, we don't need you. We don't want you to hear. We don't like you. What kind of psychologist teach us about running a business? Look at our EBITDA. And I went, okay. So then I give them all an envelope out. And they said, what's this? What's this? And they didn't like it. And I kind of realized then they like change because they say we love change. No, they love changing things. They did not like change when it's done to them. And so therefore I handed out this, and it was their redundancy notice. And so they got really annoyed, and two of them got up to physically hit me. It was interesting times. And interestingly, some of the brighter ones switched on, noticed the date was 2 years hence. So then I was able to give them a safe space to go and fail. So why did we fail? What did we not do that we should have? What should we have started doing when we met that psychologist guy whose name I can't remember back in the day? And so by making them do that, their attitude changed towards learning and towards me. I'm irrelevant, but they changed. They said, I get what you're doing now. So trying to change people's, I had Munters, again, a Swedish company, and they said, can you teach customer service? And they've done, all the customer service team done loads and loads of training, and there's still poor customer service. Results are really bad. Okay, can I do it my way? Yeah, you can do it your way, however you want. So I had 36 of them in a room in Stockholm. And I said to them, tell us about some customer complaints you've had recently, just something that's gone wrong. So they all brainstormed and everything, and we wrote a few up. And I say, you wrote that one up. So come on, tell me, how did you leave the customer feeling? How did you, not just what the customer said and what transpired afterwards, but how did you leave them feeling? So he said, well, left him feeling that actually you're doing a good job and you're trying your best. And of course, I pulled that customer out from behind a screen and said, tell him how you really felt. And that was so edgy. It was like a horror film. It was so good. Because what it did was it brought them nose to nose with the customer, rather than the principle of customer service and all the posters on the wall of people carrying briefcases up mountains that are snow-capped. And it doesn't change anything. So you go straight for the behavior, their attitude changes. And after that, their customer service numbers went up because they'd actually met real customers who were angry and understood how they felt. So a big issue for me is spending years and years and years talking to people, coaching them, trying to change their attitude. Sometimes you've got to say, this is what we're doing. And they go, I don't want to do it. Yeah, but you have to. And then after a while, they go, yeah, this is good. It's always a good option for me. Sigmoid Curve. I wanted to show you a model of why we have to change and what happens if we don't change. So Charles Handy, he's a good guy. He's a guru, but he's a good one. He wrote an excellent book called The Empty Raincoat. And he was traveling in the Wicklow Mountains behind Dublin, him and his family, and they got lost. This sounds like a joke or a spurious anecdote, but it's absolute truth. He got lost. So he said, okay, completely lost, stopped the car and asked an Irish guy there, can you tell me the way? He said, yeah, no problem. He said, carry on down this road, keep going, go down the hill, and then you'll see a bridge with Davey's bar on the other side. So I carry straight on, down the hill, carry on, a bridge, Davey's bar on the other side. You got it. He said, well, half a mile before you get there, turn right. So he started laughing and thought that was just quite funny and everything. And then he realized how profound that is, that you'll only know you should have turned when you've gone past the turning. And if you carry on the road you're on, you'll miss the road to the future. So he coined what he called the Sigmoid Curve, which he saw as the story of every empire, every organization ever, and all our working lives. You start, there's a learning curve, you peak, and you decline. He saw that as an immutable model, and I agree with him. And you end up in Davey's Bar, which is a lovely place. It's nice and warm, good company, cozy, but you're never going anywhere after that. Depressing, isn't it? Luckily, Handy gave us a way out. Draw a second curve on top of the first one. So you're carrying on here, you're going, and then you go, we need to grow another curve. That completely keeps it fresh. It gets everyone going in the same direction. I see strategy like a magnetic north. We're going this way now. So how do we align our people and our processes behind that point? Because in a business, all you've really got are people and processes. So how do we align towards that? And that's how you prevent going into Davey's Bar. Sometimes when I would teach this, some people would say, I'm in Davey's Bar and I'm really happy. That's great. I mean, I'm not saying this is a bad choice, but I'm saying that this is an immutable law that you have to draw a curve. The problem is the optimum time to grow that curve is, of course, at point A. And point A is when everything's telling you about yourself, your team, your organization. Everything's going well. It ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, there's no need. Let's carry on as we are. Hey, life's great. At the next point, point B, is where it's more difficult to draw a new curve. So at this stage, an organization, a team, or an individual want to carry on. All the ability to change is there, but the desire to change is not there. At point B, all the desire to change is there, but the ability to change is much more difficult. And it's interesting for HR, he called this area in the middle, with colored orange, he calls that the area of confusion, because that's at the point at which people are carrying on as they used to, and other sections are saying we need to go differently, we need to take a different route now. And so that area of confusion is where you get clashes. Now I've lectured, I was based in Houston for 3 years, Texas, and sometimes I'd lecture this and they would say, yeah, all these nobodies, all these no-gooders just want to carry on. And you have to, no, these are good people. They're just carrying on Why wouldn't they? They've always done it that way. It's your job to help them move up the curve and do differently. You know, I believe in people. I believe people are inherently good and want to do a good job. And so this curve, I think, represents exactly why we need to change and the implication for the area of confusion. I met Handy once. We were on a gig together. He's a really lovely guy, about 103 or something, but he's really sparky. And he said to me, do you know, Bill, I'm like most men of my age, I'm on my second marriage. Okay. He said, happily, it's to the same person, which I thought was quite profound, really. A nice man. Now, where is your organization on the sigmoid curve? Where are you on the sigmoid curve? Now, a lot of psychologists have used this as especially American psychologists, has used this as a way to say, you've got to constantly change. No, that's very disruptive. What I think Handy's saying is we need to be looking at that next curve and get on it at the optimum point, whether that's us as individuals or whether that's the team or the organization. If we carry on as we are, we end up in Davey's bar and we're not going to be able to do very well there. But we don't know when we should draw the second curve. I've had organizations offer me vast sums of money if I could plot exactly where they were, but you can. That's the whole point. It keeps you alive to looking to change, because if you carry on as you are, you'll miss the road to the future. And you'll only know you'll miss the road to the future once you've gone past it. It's a tricky one, but I think it's a really good model of understanding why we need to change. In terms of understanding the systemic issues and environmental issues that also determine behavior, I thought we'd have a look at the Stanford Prison Experiment. Now, I know you'd be saying, what's that got to do with my work? It has a lot to do with your work. So I'm sure most of you know, but for the people who don't, I will chat you through why Professor Philip Zimbardo embarked upon this. He was a prison psychiatrist. He was interested in how prisons work and what prisons do to people across the board, prisoners and guards. So he determined to conduct an experiment where he would get students, give them a bit of cash during the summer semester in 71, and half of them would play guards and half of them would play prisoners. To make it more real, those that were playing the guards went straight to prison, and those that were going to be prisoners were picked up in police cars, and they didn't know that was going to be happening to them. So they were picked up in the police car and they were driven to the prison. Now, the idea was it's a 2-week study, but they had to call it off after 6 days. Why did they have to do that? They had to do that because the prisoners were being treated badly, and it got to the stage where after 3 days, they were getting beaten, physically beaten by the guards. Bear in mind, they're both just students going back to uni in September, but they were beating, torturing, terrible treatment. And they had to call off the whole study. It was very, very prominent in the news at the time, and it was very, very controversial. In trying to study something, he created it. So what do we learn from this in our development of people? That there are systemic factors, the organization, there are situational, stroke environmental, and there are dispositional behavior. So the prison experiment taught us that behavior doesn't exist when it's in isolation. There is an environment around it created, and that environment is created by the system. So I was asked to restructure a big contracting business back in the day. And I went to see them, met the board, and we started going. And I said, no givens today, greenfield site, blah, 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 all the usual stuff that psychologists say. And we say, other than you've got to love your customer. And they said, hang on, Professor, we hate our customers and they hate us. We're a contracting organization. So we go in with a price and we notice that they've ignored the doors on it, so we can charge them extra, and they always go out to tender. So what they did is built an organization and an environment of legalistic, nitpicking people who just wanted to get one over on the customer because they knew the next contract will go out to tender and they might well win it because they'll go in at a lower price, and that's how it works. So we can see that it's not just the behavior and the environment in which the behavior is occurring, but there's a systemic issue right at the top, and that will determine that person's behavior. If you look at Abu Ghraib in Iraq in 2004, some of you may know, some of you may not. There was a prison where the Americans created their own prison for the Iraqis. And there was terrible footage came out about nasty things happening to prisoners, being degraded, humiliated, tortured, etc. And they arrested the so-called culprits and said, that's it, we've got them. You know, these are just bad people. What, all of them? Yeah, all of them. Really? So then they examined the environment, and the environment encouraged humiliation and torture. It said, this is what you must do. This is a good thing to do. And then they discovered right at the top, the American army, and especially the commander in Iraq, thought it was good, thought it was a good thing to do. So therefore, that person's behavior, poor Lindy, who got sent to prison, that was determined by an environment of what everybody joined in, everybody knew it was the norm, everybody thought it was funny. And if you didn't actually like it, well, you would be ostracized and isolated. And we can see this time and time again in history. The Nuremberg trials are on Netflix at the moment. I know there's a new film out about Nuremberg trials, but there's the Netflix is the actual Nuremberg trials. And you can see all these Nazis sitting there looking at a screen of horrors and saying, wow, and then that's not me. That can't be me, but it was you. And they didn't remember. So that link between system and environment and behavior, I think we need to take seriously as kind of people professionals. We can't just assume that behavior just exists on its own, because there are these other factors determining it. That may have seemed a strange example, but I was thinking deeply about what to teach you today, and I thought it might be interesting for you to see it from that example. You saw the same in Rwanda, 1991. It permeates history. Systemic issues determine environment, which determine behavior. It's not all about that particular person. So, what have we learned before we go on? Little recap. Personality and behavior are different constructs. The natural assumption, I've met so many very senior people who conflate the two. They don't understand they are different. Development should focus on behavior. Remember, brushing your teeth, getting people into good habits. But there is a strong effect on behavior for the environment, from the environment of the organization, and systemically from the top and the nature of the organization. Training's a passive term. The actual term is learning, which I believe is something that happens after training, or more likely without it. Assessments are helpful, but they need to answer, so what? It's easy to get into kind of vanity. When I do a management due diligence on private equity team, they often love it. And that's not why I'm there. I'm there to assess them. I get a business plan, and then I meet a team, and I have to determine, is that the right team to execute that plan? And so that, but the vanity piece exists, and I have to say, no. So because you're like this, in 3 years' time, the business is going to be like this. So you're going to have to change. And this is what you can do. So it's not just a kind of so what or an interesting experience. And I think now we've got so much knowledge, so many tools at our disposal. Technology is great at the moment to make sure that learning ticks the 2 boxes that are really, really most important. That learning is personal and that it sticks. Those are the 2 most important points for me. And we had a look at what we could do with that. We didn't start to build a product. We saw AI. I know everyone's bored with AI. And so but it's that kind of, how can you use it properly? And Lee was really quite brilliant. So we said, and this is back in the day, this is a year and a half ago, when it was still relatively new. So we say, can it be programmable? Yes. Can we if we have our own system, can it be our own system in a walled garden that doesn't go out and have learnings for, if you go to ChatGPT, you ask it a question, it will give you an answer. It'll ask you a question about anything. Well, could we narrow that down to kind of development, psychology, people, business? Can we narrow that down? And we did. Can we put Bill's head in there? Bill's anecdotes, Bill's teachings from the last 102 years. And can we put that in there? Yes, we can. So that's why we created MyTeamBuilder. We'd always been very keen to see psychology as a practical issue, not an academic study. I love the fact that we're all different, and then you learn from those differences and you leverage them and rub along. So we wanted to create something that was so practical, and Lee said it'd be like having Bill sitting with you. So we wanted to see if that was possible, and that's why we created MyTeamBuilder. What it is a platform. You go on. you won't like this bit, and you're invited to take a 3-minute assessment. So it provides a profile. So what do we all say? So what? A profile. Yeah, but this gives each individual access to our online coach, Bilee, who's a confidential coach who knows them better than their granny knows them. But get this, every time they use the system, it gets to know them better and better. They have their own coach 24/7 in total, complete confidence. So it really is like having a coach on your shoulder. You can say, I've got a meeting with Lee on Friday. I'm a bit worried about it. This is 10 o'clock at night. The system will say, no problem. Let's chat it through. In fact, do you want to role play? I'll play. Lee, you play yourself, and we'll do it that way. Why is it I don't have any presence in meetings? I don't think I come across this is what you can do about it. And then as it gets to know you, it will say, so how did the last meeting go? What did you learn about it? So we've kind of built this back end of this is why you're doing it, a system that grows with you and also continues to get to know you better and better, so it becomes more and more proactive. The manager can also see her team and who's on there. And it's not just who's completed, it's what they're like. The system will give them advice on how to manage that person as opposed to that person. You can prepare for your one-to-ones on it. You can do anything. You can plug your calendar into it. So it will say, you've got a meeting coming up with Lee on Tuesday. Do you want to prepare for it? So we built it with a kind of individual and manager and team in mind, so that you can ask questions about your teammates. You can say, why do John and I not get along? Well, it's for these reasons. Most importantly, this is what you can do about it. Not just, it's for these reasons, you're a whatever and he's a whatever. Well, that doesn't help you. This is what you can do about it, but do it in your own way. If somebody says, oh, I feel really nervous about presentations, you know, if you go onto ChatGPT or go anywhere else, it will tell you how to do it, but it will say, this is what good presentation is. Well, good presentation is what you do. If you're very shy, very introverted, don't like being the center of attention, like Lee, then you would do a very different presentation. You'd be quiet, you would point, and you would do it that way. You know, some people like being the center of attention. And so this knows these individuals so well, it gives them spot on advice that sticks and is personal. And that was our dream. And what it also does,
just
it
jump
shows
in real quickly.
Sorry, yeah.
So one of the benefits are, if you went on to say ChatGPT and it knew nothing about you, and you would say, I've got a meeting tomorrow, how can I prepare for it? It will give you generic advice, but it knows my personality, so it gives me bespoke information on my personality. But if I mention Bill as well, it knows Bill's personality too, so it doesn't just give me how to approach it, it's how to approach it with Bill. So there's many layers of optimization and personalization around the messaging it will give you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And you have the insights. So for HR, you can track usage, which is good, but more importantly, you can look at trends. It will come up with weekly trends. It will look at the organization health check, and that will be, we're breaking that now down. Bilee's working on that at the moment by department. So therefore, what we can do with it is you can see where the hotspots are, where the problems are, without anybody losing confidentiality in the system. They need to have trust that this coach will keep up everything, but you will see focus. You will see these are the trending topics. This is what people are saying at the moment. So it gives you a whole kind of insight into the teams and the whole business to allow you to tailor your, and of course, if an HR leader is on the system, it will tell that HR leader, given their personality and their usage of it, how they can best address those problems. And you can even say, I'd like to do a 2-hour workshop. It will create one for you, knowing the people that are there, knowing your personality. So we think it's pretty good. We think we've cracked it, but you know what happens? Sometimes someone will give us some really good advice and say, I wish it could do that, or that bit's not very good. And we know that, but we want more and more people to try it. You know, it's more cost effective. You can see this stuff. You don't need me to read them out. You know, it's scalable. One of the things about training, and especially coaching, which is inordinately expensive, it's not scalable. And so that, you know, like in the US when I worked there, getting a coach was like a trophy. You know, ooh, you've won something. You know, hey, he's got his own coach. You know, and is the driver next, you know. So I think what it does is it gives everybody the opportunity to offload, understand things, get advice and help, guidance, and it will give the managers confidence. We saw this as absolute game changer for the managers who will know their team intimately and will be able to say, I've got to have a one-to-one with that person and I'm a bit worried. And it knows that manager, it knows her intimately better than a granny knows her, and also it knows that individual that she's having the one-to-one with, so it be able to give them confidence that they'll approach it in the right way. And all the insights are up to date. Everything is constantly moving. Middle of the night, you have a problem, you can go, I'm a bit worried about this. Bilee's there for you anyway, and then it becomes proactive. So that bit's really, really important, that what happens is it gets back to you, it checks in with you. So it's your confidant there 24/7. That's what we've created. We're quite excited by it. People say nice things about it, as you can see. If anybody said anything bad, we wouldn't have put it up there, to be honest, but people are all saying nice things about it. But you know, in the words of Mandy Rice Davis, we would say that, wouldn't we? So we think you should try it for yourself, because do you remember, behavior determines attitude? Why don't you have a go and have a play? Thanks all for listening. I really appreciate it. And we're over to Catherine.
Thanks so much, Bill, for all of those stories and insight into psychology. I feel like I'm diving back into my AS psychology qualification today. So that's really nice. And as Bill mentioned, the way to experience TeamBuilder is to try it for yourself. So there's a link on your screen. If you want to try out that demo, you can follow that link and that will take you there. I'm going to do a quick recap before we have time for questions. If you have questions for Bill and Lee, please send them in using the Q&A panel. So as Bill explained, traditional training and assessments often fail to deliver lasting impact because of their outdated models and one-size-fits-all approaches. Bill explained how personality and behaviour are distinct but interconnected, and understanding both is absolutely critical for effectively developing teams. Assessments, as we've seen, often prompt reflection, but can fail to drive meaningful change. And we here at Ciphr and also the team at MyTeamBuilder believe that TeamBuilder offers a modern AI-powered solution. So you can click that link for your free trial, or you can email us at info@ciphr.com and we'll arrange that for you. So we have time now for questions. We'll start with this one from Tracy, who asks, how does MyTeamBuilder cross departmental boundaries, i.e. with other teams? They're looking to improve communications and working relationships outside of the immediate team.
You can, Lee will go into the technicalities of this, but what you can do is just in a CSV file, load a whole organization or a part of an organization, and it will know where everyone sits. It will know if someone's in multiple teams. So therefore it will have that ability to say that person and that person, they're not in the same team, but they don't do so well. Or why does this, that you can go more general than that as to why that person, why that team doesn't get on so well with that team and what they could do about it. So you can take it from the granular level up to the team level, but you can have a situation where the whole organization is on there if you want, and then it knows where everyone sits. It puts people in multiple teams. You only have to take the assessment once, and that's what we'd like to do. We'd like to see it be a game changer for the whole business.
So yeah, so just add to that, the way the system works is people live inside teams. So when you log in, you'll get to see the people you work with in your current teams, but it has context of the whole organization. So if you wanted to search for someone that wasn't in your team, it knows who they are, it knows their personality, it can give you structured and personalized advice on anyone in that organization. So it's not limited to the team that you see in front of you.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most powerful benefits of it. We're just starting to roll it out here in Ciphr, and that's one of the things we really want to improve is cross-team collaboration, is understanding the people that you may only interact with a couple of times a month. You don't know them intimately, you don't see them every day, so you're having more effective project working and more effective conversations with them. So thank you, Tracy, for your question. This question came in through private chat, so I've posted it anonymously. Someone asked, can you plug in company policies or values, etc., so that the coaching offered through the tool is aligned to company standards and expectations?
Yes. So
yes, we can. Lee
jumped all over
yesterday.
Yeah. So just a real quick summary. The way it works is we have our foundation model. We have Bill's knowledge on top of that. Everyone gets that. You can now upload your policy handbooks, documents, anything to do with bespoke to your organization, and it takes all of that into account. So if you have like your values for your organization, it will also layer that in as well. So then you have many layers of knowledge. So the foundation of the AI, Bill's knowledge, and then on top of that, it's bespoke to your organization, anything that you upload yourself, pretty much.
Yeah. Fantastic, thanks, Lil. Lee, that's really, I called you Lil then, sorry. Just merging Bill and Lee together in the other film, not Billy, but Lil. So yeah, that's great. It's a really valuable and important point, is that we can make this work for you, for your organization, and all of this is bespoke. It's a bespoke setup for each individual organization. All that information is secure and private for your instance, and as Bill alluded to, you're not putting it out through ChatGPT. It's not getting trained, no other models are being trained on it. It's not out in the ether. It's all really nice and safe and secure, and you know that personal information is protected. So there's no other questions that I can see in the Q&A at the moment. So we're going to wrap up for today. But obviously, if you do have any further questions, you can find Bill and Lee online on LinkedIn, or you can reach us via info@ciphr.com. If you'd like to find out more about any of our solutions, whether that's Ciphr or MyTeamBuilder, you can opt in to find out more using the exit survey that you'll see on the screen afterwards. We'd also appreciate your feedback on today's webinar so we can do better for next time. And remember, this has all been recorded, and we'll email that recording to you as soon as we can. So it just remains to say thank you, Bill. Thank you, Lee, for your expertise and time today. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope you found it informative and useful, and to see you again at another Ciphr webinar soon. Take care. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.